Welcome back, boys and girls. Happy Thursday. Well, it's Friday where you guys are, but it is indeed Thursday here. Shout out to my boy G Hawk again. And shout out to somebody that recommended this video. As always, hopefully you guys are doing good, amazing, very well, outstanding on this Thursday, Ryan. So, why are there so many teams in one city in the AFL? If you look at other sports like baseball, basketball, stuff like that, obviously there are teams scattered around in different cities, the country, stuff like that. But not in Aussie land. Apparently all these teams are in one city. Is it just better commute? Is it just easier for fans to get to their destination? We are finna figure out. We are finna see what's on. Don't forget to start the video. So as always, let's get it. Short intro, y'all.
National sports leagues
Short
around the
intro.
world. Usually there is an even spread of teams from cities across the country, where a city will generally contain one or two sports teams in the major league. If you look at American sports leagues, cities from Boston to LA, from as small as Green Bay to as large as New York City are represented. Large cities such as New York and LA contain two teams in the National League, while other major cities are represented by one team. In the UK, there is a different system for its English football competition with a promotion and relegation system. This of course has advantages and disadvantages, but it eliminates the need for league expansion and an unfair balance of teams, with this being determined by how good or how much money is in the club. Currently, London has 7 teams in the top division. This varies and representation around the country fluctuates, but remains consistently well represented. The promotion relegation system is also in the rest of Europe and many soccer leagues across the world. So if you look at the major sports leagues in Australia by comparison, the AFL and the NRL, you would be shocked to learn that both leagues contain a whopping 9 teams in just one city, namely 9 AFL teams based in Melbourne and 9 NRL teams based in Sydney. Why is this? Well, to understand this, you need to go back to the origins of both sports. I encourage you to watch this video here if you haven't already. Which we did check out. If you guys have not checked that out, it's on my channel as well. Very interesting video. To understand, and the hatred. Not the hatred, but just the in Victoria, the despise, I guess. So heavily concentrated in New South Wales. The league's distribution of teams is not correlated with the population due to the Barassi line. It should be noted though that the focus of this video will be on the AFL. In simple terms, Australian football was founded and first played in Melbourne, Victoria in the mid-1800s. The sport grew in popularity across the city, the then colony of Victoria, and would eventually spread across Australia, where it became very popular in South Australia, Western Australia, Tasmania, and the Northern Territory. State-based, or in most cases, city-based leagues would rise, such as the VFL in Victoria, Sandful in South Australia, and Waffle in Western Australia. The question is, why didn't a national league evolve much sooner? Why did it take until 1982 for a team to play in a different state, where the NFL in America by comparison was played across states since its inception in the 1930s? To answer this, we need to go back to 1858 and then 1859 when the Melbourne and Geelong football clubs were established respectively, and by the late 1800s the Victorian Football Association had been formed as clubs around the suburbs of Melbourne were established. But I will say one thing with having like the teams kind of nearby. I think, like I said earlier, I think it should just get your destination to and from. I think Australia, if I'm correct, I think it's some geography for you guys. Obviously you guys will know, but I think obviously you guys will know this, but like I think it's like a lot of it is just like a lot of like the land there is like mountains or something like that. Like it's uninhabitable land. It's something like that. I'm probably just dead ass wrong, just talking out my butt. But I think it's something like that. I'm not entirely sure though. But see, South Melbourne, St. Kilda, RC Carlton, Collingwood, Victoria, they're close. But with how big like the cities are and stuff like that, or how like populated cities are, you can't, all people go to just one team. That's why you create different teams. In 1890, diversion. 8 clubs, Melbourne, Geelong, Carlton, St Kilda, Fitzroy, Essendon, Collingwood and South Melbourne came together to form the Victorian Football League. Unlike other sporting leagues around the world, all of these teams would continue to exist, with South Melbourne, who would later relocate to Sydney, and Fitzroy would merge with another club to exist in Brisbane. Richmond would join, followed by Hawthorn, Footscray and North Melbourne, which are all suburbs of Melbourne. If you notice, these clubs are all in inner city Melbourne and not very far away from each other. This is partly due to the fact that these clubs were founded when Melbourne's population was only 490,000 in 1890, and the outer suburbs of today were not developed. This VFL competition laid the foundations for an Australian-wide competition that we see today, beginning with South Melbourne's relocation to Sydney in 1982, and today 9 out of the 18 teams are from interstate, with the other 10 based in Victoria, namely 9 in Melbourne and 1 in Geelong. Why didn't teams in Ballarat, Bendigo, or even Albury or Canberra join? Why weren't Adelaide-based clubs part of the same competition from the beginning? Let's start with the first question, and simply, Ballarat, Bendigo, or even Albury were just that bit further away, and their populations weren't large enough to justify a VFL team to join the competition.
Look how popular Melbourne is. My God, it's like almost 5 million people in one city. That's a lot of people. And you see, look at Geelong, 214, Ballarat, 111,000, Bendigo, Bendigo, very. Everybody lives in Melbourne.
And Bendigo were close to joining in 1954, as there were joint discussions within the VFL to expand. The following year, the Ballarat Football Club applied to join the league, but the VFL never acted upon this and nothing happened. Canberra had expressed interest in fielding a team in their
So the VFL basically just ignored them, I guess? Nah. You can apply, but nah.
As early as the 1970s, and launched a bid in 1981, but were unsuccessful as the VFL opted to concentrate on a Sydney-based side instead. Canberra would bid 5 times for a licence, but were unsuccessful and remain without a team in the AFL today. Adelaide already had its own league in the SANFL, and along with the Waffle in Perth, were staunchly against any VFL takeover. They both avoided the VFL competing as competitor leagues. However, when the VFL began poaching players from the SANFL and Waffle due to its more lucrative finances, it clearly had become the top league in Australia.
It's always like that though.
Both the SANFL and Waffle couldn't compete and caved into the VFL's expansionist demands, where SANFL club Port Adelaide tried to join the VFL in the late 80s, and a new team formed from SANFL club joining in the Adelaide Crows in 1991, which would then be followed by Port Adelaide in 1997, who were the only AFL team to join the competition outside the VFL as a pre-existing club.
Catfish. The what? Catfish. The catfish. The catfish.
In Western Australia, the West Coast Eagles and Fremantle Dockers would join in 1987 and 1995 respectively as brand new clubs. These teams from Western Australia and teams from South Australia would join the VFL competition, which would then become the AFL. Victoria's higher population simply meant it would always have the upper hand over those leagues, which is why this occurred. So, to answer the question why expansion in Australia didn't happen sooner, especially compared to American leagues, simply this is due to Australia's sparse population and it being more concentrated in major cities, leading to
which I'm not too surprised about being mainly focused in bigger cities, because there's just so many people, stuff like that. You can just create different clubs in those cities because of the population. But it's interesting, I will say, looking at Newcastle, for example, which 500, I guess is like from a few years ago, but 505,000 citizens, but there's no team. And you see a lot of these teams that actually have pretty good population, but you can see like the drop off from 5th to 8th. It's a pretty big drop off.
That didn't happen sooner,
citizens,
especially compared to American leagues. Simply, this is due to Australia's sparse population and it being
you see the middle, like barely anybody lives in the middle,
leading to cities or states having their own competitions rather than an early national league forming. Strong rivalries within these leagues would rather than an early national league.
So Newcastle does have. So I did read that wrong. My bad. So Newcastle does have a team. I guess it's Frio. I'm assuming something like that. Or actually, no. All right. Let me
forming.
Yeah,
strong rivalries within these leagues would also
shut up.
So fans were much more interested in beating their suburban rivals than being loyal to a city in a national competition. Rivalries such as Carlton and Collingwood, which are two neighbouring suburbs, became very strong, and similar rivalries in other leagues occurred, such as Port Adelaide and Norwood rivalry in the Centre.
Also, flying is expensive today, let alone in the first half of the 20th century. So teams consistently travelling interstate to play each other would be too costly for it to be justified. Furthermore, AFL wasn't as strong in the other populous states of New South Wales and Queensland, which meant that the league in Victoria became the strongest league in the country, and there was no need for a combined national league to arise until VFL clubs fell into financial difficulty in the late 1970s. This is why it took until the 1980s for the concept of a national league to be recognised, and although there were ideas to merge the VFL, Sample and Waffle into one super league, this never came into fruition, as 1. There would be too many teams, which would make expansion into New South Wales and Queensland impossible, and 2. If they were to reduce teams, the leagues could never agree on which teams those would be.
I can guarantee those.
Creating an entirely different league also never occurred due to the same reasons, as the VFL believed it was the strongest league and would never agree to lose its supremacy.
Oh, jeez.
Another question asked is, why didn't more VFL teams relocate like South Melbourne and Fitzroy did? Many teams faced financial difficulty, and although some teams...
And we know like how bad, like, not how troublesome money was.
As this is where their supporters were and are to this day. It was more common for mergers to be discussed, and a few almost occurred, but the passion from loyal supporters prevented this, such as the proposed Bulldogs Fitzroy
My man ain't going for
the infamous Melbourne Hawks proposal.
Ew.
A team such as North Melbourne has constantly been discussed as a potential relocated team due to its small status as a club, where relocation proposals range from Canberra to the Gold Coast and more recently Tassie, but the club has refused every time. Ultimately, the Victorian clubs have built up loyal supporter bases due to their years of history, which have prevented mass mergers or relocations. So in summary, the reason why the AFL is so heavily concentrated in Victoria is due to its foundation from the VFL and years of history, creating a situation today where some of the strongest and biggest clubs are still based in Melbourne. And I can't see this changing.
21,000 like Gold Coast.
I hope you enjoyed the video.
That was a very, very good video. Very, very good video. Obviously, Tassie is going to get an AFL team. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how that team is. Obviously, there are going to be some struggles in their first few years, but very, very informative video. Just, you know, seeing the history of like some teams. Obviously, you know, a team who's had a longer status in the VFL, AFL, whatever, is going to have more support just because of long-term status and stuff like that. So I didn't really know North Melbourne were like, I guess, constantly bombarded about potentially relocating, but good thing that they didn't relocate. That would have been that's not good for the supporters and fans of the team. But on that note, hope you guys did enjoy the video. Don't forget to like the video. So as always, take care, stay amazing. Peace.